In today's show, we're going to be discussing upper cervical chiropractic with Dr. Kevin Pecca. So let's just jump right into the interview. Dr. Pecca, welcome to the show.
Dr. Travis, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be on your show and share my story and the message of upper cervical chiropractic.
And now we've talked in the past, and I can't wait to get into your story and then what upper cervical chiropractic actually is, because it was something that was brand new to me. And I've been through a lot of chiropractic care. But before we jump into that, tell viewers just a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then what you do for a living.
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I am a Blair upper cervical chiropractor in West Orange, New Jersey, and I practice the upper cervical technique, and about only 5% of practicing chiropractors practice this technique, so it's a specialty within the chiropractic field.
So let's jump into that a little bit more and just talk about what upper cervical chiropractic is.
So upper cervical chiropractic is a specialty within the field that specializes in the upper neck, right around the brainstem, where every function in your body takes place. Now, there's about 7 upper cervical techniques, and most of them focus on C1 and C2, the atlas and the axis, which directly house the brainstem. Now, there's no disc space in that area like there is in the rest of the spine. So it's a very vulnerable area with the most neurological significance. And over the course of our lifetime, it's very easy for that position to slip and lock out of place through any type of minor or major car accident, sports injury, falling off the monkey bars when you were little, getting pulled out of the birth canal too hard. And when that happens, those vertebrae lock out of place, and it cuts off the nerve flow and blood flow to the rest of the body, and the brain can't communicate with the spinal cord and heal itself, causing a plethora of symptoms going on in the body.
So is it safe to say the upper cervical chiropractic is mostly just focused on, you focus on the entire spine health, but you're mostly focusing on that C1, C2, the atlas and the axis?
Some upper cervical doctors will only adjust that. Now, the adjustment, every chiropractor can say they can do an upper cervical adjustment, but the true upper cervical adjustment is completely different than standard chiropractic adjustments. There's no twisting, cracking, or pulling on the neck. It's very light, very precise, and it's actually measured by your own joint angles in your neck. So there's no guesswork. It's a light little tap, and it puts everything back into place down to the exact millimeter, because we take very precise 3-dimensional x-rays, and we see exactly how those bones sit in that neck, because it is a very serious area. You need to know exactly what you're adjusting and how to adjust it. So when I hear other chiropractors aren't even taking x-rays, that's pretty shocking to me, because sometimes there's asymmetries in the spine. So one side can feel a little bit more off or out of place than the left, when that's just that patient's bone structure and it's actually in place. Sometimes the mastoid processes actually cover C1 in about 20% of people. So some chiropractors think they're actually adjusting the atlas, when actually that bone is covered. They're actually adjusting C2. I've seen a couple images on my x-rays where there's occipitalization between the occiput and atlas, where they're actually fused together. And there's no way you want to go up there and adjust that area. So the upper cervical chiropractor is only as good as his imaging. So that plays a huge role in our practice. And one more thing that is really crucial in upper cervical chiropractic that makes us different than other standard chiropractic is we say holding is healing. Now, this is the most amazing part of the technique, because we'll jump into my story in a little bit, but I was basing my life around going to see doctors, because I had a bunch of ice hockey concussions, and for 4 years I had brain fog, blurred vision, dizziness, anxiety, depression. I couldn't function as a person anymore. I was on disability, and I never thought I was going to live a normal life ever again, because that's what the Western medical profession was telling me. They told me I had a brain injury and I was never going to live a normal life again. And so we'll jump into that in a little bit, but my favorite part about the Blair Upper Cervical method is holding is healing. Now, what exactly does that mean? It means that these adjustments can stay in place weeks to months to years. And when the adjustment does stay in place, it allows the nerve flow to operate at its optimal potential. So there's no interference. So the body has the capacity to heal itself. If you're going to a chiropractor and you're getting the same adjustment 3 to 4 times a week, there's really not a lot of holding taking place and your body's not doing a lot of healing. So I have people, sometimes I only get one shot with them. They fly from different countries, different states, and I'm only able to see them once or twice. And you put everything back into alignment where it needs to be. The muscles and ligaments keep it there because it's so specific. And they can go home to wherever they're from, and the adjustment will continue to work and heal because there's no more interference. Everything's in place, and they continue to heal.
No, that's pretty amazing and pretty remarkable. Just the whole concept of it. Like I've never heard of anything like this,
Right.
and till I talked to you, like I said earlier, are there studies that are showing that upper cervical chiropractic works?
Absolutely. There is a ton of studies. I can actually send you those links if you'd like to put in the show notes.
Sure.
I actually I had a comment on my YouTube video a couple weeks ago. Are there any relevant studies showing that upper cervical care works? And I posted about 3 or 4 good studies. So I'll send that over to you after the show.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's now everybody always kind of talks about chiropractic and how it can be dangerous, but by the
Mhm.
way that this sounds, it actually seems like it's safer because you're not doing as drastic or dramatic of adjustments. So let's talk about the safety profile of it and talk about if
And
this is dangerous.
absolutely, I will completely agree with that first statement. I won't let 95% of the chiropractors touch my own neck. I don't like any twisting, cracking, or pulling on my neck. I was in chiropractic school and I had that done to me, and the whole right side of my neck swelled up, and my symptoms, my blurred vision, and everything got bad. And I was like, I never want that done to me ever again. How am I going to become a chiropractor? I don't want that done to me. And so it was an unfortunate experience that happened to me, but in the long run, it became very beneficial because I completely agree with that statement. When I was going through my healing process, when I was seeing all the Western medicine doctors, they told me, whatever you do, don't see a chiropractor. And I don't really blame them for that statement because there's people that aren't taking x-rays. They're just taking people's necks, twist, twist, crack, crack. They're not visualizing what they're actually moving in the neck, and that can be dangerous. And I would never want that done to me. And as we were stating before, there's no guesswork in the upper cervical world. We are visualizing your actual neck in a 3D image. We know exactly how that bone has moved out of place, and we know exactly the joint angle to slip it right back in. And uh, we don't give you, our goal is to give you one neck adjustment. So when my patients come in and I say, everything's in place, you're holding, they're very excited because they know that the nerve flow is there, their body's healing. And then I might do very light muscle work, and I might look at the hips and shoulders just to just see if there's anything else going on there. And what you'll find is once the upper neck is put back into place, the shoulders balance out, the hips balance out. So it's actually, I have people come into me with severe low back pain, even scheduled for surgery. And we put the upper neck back in, and the low back pain gets better. They don't need the surgery anymore. So although we are only working on the top 2 bones, we are, it trickles down the spine, and it's a global effect on the entire body.
Well, I like the sound of that. It sounds like you might be seeing me pretty soon after
Yeah.
this brief conversation, but
Yeah.
let's dive into your backstory a little bit more. Let's talk about why you became an upper cervical chiropractor. We kind of went into it with your hockey concussions, but I know there's probably a lot more to that story, so let's go into that.
Absolutely. So I grew up playing ice hockey and most contact sports. I loved every aspect of it. And concussion issues, we really didn't start to gain traction probably until the last 10 years. So if you got an ice hockey hit, football injury, Yeah, the thing to do was suck it up, tough it up, and get back out there. And because people didn't know, it wasn't that they wanted you to stay injured or anything. That was just, we just didn't know the severity of the concussions, and now we're starting to know. So I probably had about three diagnosed major concussions, and just so many, just minor ones, growing up, sledding, ice hockey, just things you don't even think about. Falling off I crushed my neck falling off the monkey bars one time when I was little, knocked the wind out of me. And it's just things like that that add up over your lifetime. And most of the time we find that the injuries in the upper neck have been in the body for about 15 to 20 years, and the symptoms don't show up until years later. So it's very difficult for people to connect the dots of when their symptoms were coming up. I have a lot of patients that say, I woke up with severe ear ringing, headaches. I didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. And then you uncover a little bit about their backstory, and oh yeah, I had a huge car accident 20 years ago. And these injuries don't just go away. They stay in the nervous system for all that time until it's corrected. So um, for me, I had my last ice hockey concussion when I was 20 years old. And it was kind of tough for me to connect the dots because I got it in practice on a Wednesday. I collided with one of my friends by the boards, and I saw stars for a little bit. I didn't pass out. I didn't black out. Everything got a little fuzzy for probably 3 seconds. And then I shook it off, and then I went back out there. And then we had a tournament over the weekend, and no real major big hits, nothing out of the ordinary. I just, I got hit a little bit, and then I woke up on Monday morning, and it was the worst I felt in my entire life. Blurred vision, headaches, severe knee pain, no energy, very lethargic. Short-term memory just was, I would walk in a room and forget why I walked in the first place. One of my big symptoms also was hand tremors. I would have to put my hands under the pillows to stop them from shaking at night. And so at this point, they told me just to rest for 2 weeks. I had a concussion. Everything should dissipate and go back to normal. So I waited the 2 weeks, and I actually began to feel worse. And when I went back to my primary care physician, they didn't really have any answers for me. So I remember thinking, okay, I need to see a specialist now because the primary care doctor doesn't really know what's going on. So we went to see a neurologist. And when I got to the neurologist's office, he was kind of like, all your neurological exams are coming back fine. You had a concussion, just rest, don't do anything. And it almost felt like he didn't believe me too. And I remember grabbing a flashlight off his desk, and I turned it on and put it against the wall. And I was 20 years old, and I was like, my hands are visibly shaking. Like there's something really wrong here. Something's not right. And they really didn't have any answers for me. So I was kind of very disappointed after that visit. I saw a couple more neurologists, and these people actually listened to me. And so they gave me what they had in their tool belt to fix the problem or mask the symptoms with pills. So they gave me seizure medication to help my hands from stop shaking. They gave me painkillers to numb the severe pain I had all over my body. And they gave me antidepressants because I told them I was depressed. And it's not that I was a depressed person. It was just all these symptoms were making me just feel awful all the time. And I continued to take those for about 3 months. And I remember I had suicidal thoughts, which I never had in my entire life. And those actually got worse. And that's actually one of the side effects from antidepressants is it could actually make you feel even worse sometimes. And I didn't even realize that was going on until I mentioned it to somebody. So they're like, I would probably talk to somebody and, maybe stop taking those because they could be making you feel worse and they actually can be working against you. And I went to a neuropsychologist. They did all these exams on me. And I remember 5 minutes into the testing, the guy stops me. I'm telling him the same story I'm telling you right now. And he said, Kevin, what if I told you you're going to have to live with this for the rest of your life? And I was pretty shocked. This was 5 minutes into seeing a healthcare professional, and he already gave up on me. And this was probably the fourth or fifth specialist I've seen. And I got very angry there, and I said, I think I want a new doctor because you're already giving up on me. I didn't even finish telling you my story yet. And I lost all hope after that. After that doctor, it was pretty crushing because I saw 3 or 4 specialists that at that time. Nobody had any answers for me. They told me to rest. I rested 3 or 4 months. They gave me the medication. The medication wasn't working. So I decided to stop all medication, and I drifted into a very, very dark place after that. It was rock bottom for me. I was I was taking about 2 classes in college because I couldn't handle the workload. Because if I read a book, the words would kind of get jumbled, and I did the very best I could just to stay in school and keep everything going in my life. But I pretty much locked myself in my room for the last 2 years of college and just slept all day and just did what I had to do to get by. But there was one morning I remember waking up. Every morning I would wake up around 7 in the morning because my knee pain. I still can't explain that symptom why it was there, but I had severe knee pain that would wake me up every morning, and I didn't really go to bed until 2 or 3 at night because I had like a little bit of insomnia. I just couldn't fall asleep with all the symptoms going on. So it was just a vicious cycle of no sleep. And then when I fall asleep, the knee pain would wake me up at 7 a.m. And I remember waking up and turning over. And this was not a characteristic of me at all. I'm a very positive person. Every night I would go to bed. People said, "Oh, pray, think positive." And every night I would go to bed, please let this go away. Tomorrow's going to be a better day. And every day for 2 years was like the worst day of my life. And I woke up that morning. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm physically exhausted. There's people telling me I have nothing left I'm never going to live a normal life again. I felt bad for everybody that was around me because felt bad for my family that they had to, I felt like people had to deal with me. And that certainly wasn't the case, but that was the way I was looking at it. And all my relationships with my friends kind of suffered because you're 19, 20 years old. Everybody wants to go out and have fun, and you can't really do that. So I just felt like there was nothing left to live for anymore. And I turned over and I was like, today's the day. I can't live like this anymore. So I kind of just had a mental breakdown, started crying. And then about 5 minutes later, I kind of shook myself off, and I said, this isn't the answer. We really got to find the root cause of what's going on. And so I scheduled a meeting with I went to a Catholic university, and I scheduled a meeting with a priest. If just because maybe he can give me some Our Fathers, Hail Marys, something to snap me out of this or point me in the right direction. So I had a meeting with this priest, and very unorthodox priest, grizzly beard, pack of cigarettes on the desk. Not what you expect when you walk into go see a priest. And he was the first person that actually met me on my level, pulled up a chair, let me talk, listened to me, and gave no advice about God or anything, just listen to me. And I'm telling him the same story I'm telling you. And I remember him saying, Kevin, you can do all the hoping, wishing, and praying in the world, but if you don't go out and find the root cause of this problem, you're never going to get better. And he said something very interesting. He's like, out of all the people to ever walk this planet, there has to be one person that had the same thing that you had, and there has to be one person that got better from it. So he's like, go out there, talk to people, find somebody that's gotten better, and stop feeling sorry for yourself. You can you got to snap out of it as best you can. And that advice just kind of shook me. I was not ready to hear that, but it actually woke me up a little bit. And even though I had upwards of 20 neurological symptoms every day, I was like, you know what? He's right. Let's go figure out what's going on here. And so I called after I got out of his office, I called a ex-professional ice hockey player that was dealing with concussions, and he had some success. And he coached me He coached me about 3 or 4 years prior to this. So I had his number, and he was getting these neck injections in the back of his neck, PRP, platelet-rich plasma, or prolotherapy. And he said, yeah, it got him about 80, 90% better. And he referred me to the doctor. And I got to that doctor's office that day, and he was the first person in 2 years that told me that he can give me my life back and that he's seen it before and that we could definitely get you better. And I'll never forget looking over at my mom the moment he said that, and she just started breaking down, crying, because uh, these injuries, they affect the entire family. It's not that you that's just going through that. And when I saw my mom just breaking down, crying, tears of joy, I said, "Oh man, I really got to get better here because this is affecting not only me but my entire family." So, um, he I got upwards of like 10 injections in the neck. The first one was amazing. It lifted the brain fog for the first time in 2 years. I had clarity again, and it lasted about 2 or 3 days, but then everything came back after that. And then I did about 10 or 11, and they were expensive shots, and we just kind of ran out of money. So we stopped doing that. But he was the first doctor to tell me that posture dictates function. And if there's any interference around the brainstem, that could be the issue. And once that area is clear, your body will start to heal. So I remembered that. And then I remember thinking to myself, all these doctors are telling me, don't go see the chiropractor. What do I have to lose at this point? So I, I went to the chiropractor I grew up seeing when I was a young kid, and he never did any twisting, cracking, or pulling on the neck. He did a nice, light, gentle neck adjustment. Um, and it wasn't upper cervical chiropractic, but it was pretty close to it. And he got me about 60, 70% better. I was seeing him about 3 or 4 times a week. And the only problem was if I didn't see him for 1 week, all my symptoms would come back. So I remember thinking to myself, there's something going on with chiropractic. It's making me feel better. I'm not 100% yet, but I can function again. And so my cousin went to chiropractic school out in California. So I decided to enroll in chiropractic school out there. But the only problem was I knew these symptoms were going to come back because they always did after a week or two of not being able to see this guy. So I moved out to California. Sure enough, 2 or 3 weeks later, all my symptoms, it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks. I would say 2 months in, they started getting really bad again. And I was thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to drop out of school again. I can't function. It's too rigorous. It's like a full-time job going to medical school, as you know. And I was getting ready to drop out on a Thursday, and I had one more tutor session with one of my friends who was a couple terms ahead of me. And he said, "What's wrong with you? You don't look good today." I said, "I think I'm gonna have to drop out. I have too many concussion issues and headaches, and I can't concentrate." And he said, "I think I might know one person that can help you." And so he referred me to this Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractor, Dr. Drew Hall in Los Angeles. And it's crazy how the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, works out. But I was telling Dr. Hall my story, and at the end of it, he's kind of smiling a little bit. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't really a funny story. Why is this guy smiling? And it ended up he had the same exact story as me to a T. He was wrestling his friend. His friend picked him up, dropped him on his head on a baseball field, and heard a huge crack under his neck. And he thought he was paralyzed for like 5 seconds. But then he started wiggling his fingers, and he got up, realized he wasn't paralyzed. And about 7 or 8 months later, his body started to shut down on him. And same symptom as me. And he said, Blair Upper Cervical Chiropractic saved my life. There's no doubt in my mind that we can get you better. And I said, perfect, but I've heard this before, so show me the money here. Let's go, because I've heard people told me they'd get me better before. And so they took the very precise x-rays. He laid me down on the table, gave me my first adjustment. And 2 minutes later, he got me up off the adjusting table. And for the first time, it's been 4 years at this point. For the first time in 4 years, my brain fog and blurred vision and the anxiety and depression went away almost immediately. And then I went in the back room to rest, and I had it felt like a surge of life came back into my body that I haven't felt in such a long time. It felt like I was connected again. And then I remember walking outside, and it was like I had high definition vision because the brain fog wasn't there anymore. The colors on the trees were brighter and greener, and I slept completely through the night for the first time in 4 years. And I remember waking up the next morning and realizing with every fiber of my being that this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. And and my symptoms didn't go away that day, all of them. But it took about 3 to 6 months. Every couple weeks, things would get better and better and better until things were completely gone. And I got my life back. And I never thought I was going to be able to. I remember doing 5 push-ups one time in the middle of all the mayhem when it was really bad and the room started spinning and I had to lay down for about 4 hours. And I never thought I was going to be able to work out again, play hockey, surf, do all the things I love doing. And I do them now, and I do them better than ever. And it's a huge blessing in my life. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to share my experience and do that for a living now, because I have so many people in my office that have been through the same thing I have, and it's such a gift to help them heal up and give their lives back. That's the reason why I do it.
And that's an incredible story, number one. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
And I really commend you for really putting it all out there too, because
Yeah,
there's a lot to that story. And I want to kind of do a couple takeaways from it, because most of our listeners are people that are suffering from dry eyes and blepharitis or any eye conditions. So a couple takeaways from Dr. Pecca's story is that, you know, someone out there is going through exactly what you were going through, and so they've healed it. And so
mm,
you just got to keep reaching out to people, because that's what we made the group for, to just keep help people mentor other people, because they find my wife and I, we help them kind of rethink their dry eye treatment, and it takes them down a completely separate path than what they're normally going down. And so you learn from a neurologist, another neurologist, and it led you to this path of going to see a priest who then sent you to this, and then you just kept going. And that's the key thing, is you will find that solution if you just keep trying. And is upper cervical chiropractic the solution you're looking for? It could be for that person that's listening right now.
absolutely.
And then we'll give you your contact information at the end here, um, but even with dry eye, it could be me, it could be somebody else, it could be anybody. So keep
Absolutely.
looking for that solution, because you never know when you're going to find it, and you never know what's going to work. That's why we start out with something so simple, and we get into more complex treatments. And then yours is, I mean, upper cervical chiropractic, although very complex, it's a very simple treatment, because
Exactly.
and it makes sense, because your brain connects to the rest of your body through those first two vertebrae of your spine. And if those aren't on point and flowing correctly, then it's going to affect your whole body system. And that's kind of the whole concept behind chiropractic as well. But this is the very beginning. So you're talking about the origin. And so I loved your story. Thank you for sharing that. What I want
Absolutely.
to do is just shift it a little bit. Now, I've dealt with lower back problems for the last 10 years, stopped playing volleyball, had to stop running for about a year, couldn't play with my son because it hurt so bad.
Mm,
All traditional chiropractic for about a year and a half. It took my pain level from an 8 to a 1.
hmm.
And now I sit at that 1, and it flares up to about a 5 to 6 when I do things like stand for too long, or I flex my back too long. And so if I were to fly out to see you in New Jersey, because I'm in Texas,
Hmm.
walk me through what that typical appointment would look like, and then what happens after the appointment.
So anybody coming from out of state or other countries, we recommend usually staying for 1 week, or about 3 to 4 days. So your first day here, we would take all of the x-rays, we would do all the neurological exams. We do a couple different scanners to measure thermography in the neck to show where there's excessive heat in the neck. And then we also do a neurological leg check, and we can tell what's out of place in your neck by looking at your leg length. And so we would do all the tests, and it's completely necessary because everybody gets a different adjustment in the upper cervical world. It's not just twist, twist, pop, pop. It's very specific to your own joint anatomy. So we really have to do the analysis of what's going on and uncover how to get you better. So usually I sit my patients down for 20 minutes. Tell me exactly what you're going through and don't leave anything out. Car accidents, sports injuries, what medications are you on? Have you had any minor or major surgeries? Are you taking any medication? I want to know everything that's been going on with you. And then we take our x-rays, we do our neuro testing. And then if it's a pretty straightforward misalignment, I'll get people adjusted that day. Sometimes some people have a lot more going on and I need to spend another hour or two with their scan. But we can still bring you in that day and get you adjusted. Now, after the first adjustment, we rest you. So you're not on your back or your stomach for these upper cervical adjustments. You are laying on this on your side. Your head is on a little headpiece, and the table clicks up. And then we do a light little tap on the neck, and the table clicks down. And so after the adjustment, we lay you on your side for 5 minutes because some people feel a little warmth under their ears, a little tingling down the body. That's the nerve flow and blood flow coming back. And like I said before, we want to keep everything there. We don't want to disrupt everything. So we lay you on your side for 5 minutes, and then we bring you into our back resting room, into our zero gravity chairs, and we rest you for another 15 to 20 minutes to let everything rebalance. And so then to make sure we absolutely nailed it, we do our neurological leg check again. And if I did my job correctly, your leg length will be perfectly balanced and your scan should show a shift in pattern thermographically. So we make sure you're balanced before we send you home. And then we would probably see you one more time that week to make sure you are balanced and holding your adjustment. So you come back in for your follow-up visit. If your neck scan looks clear, if your hips are balanced, your leg length's balanced, and all of the neurological tests in the neck are coming back negative, there's no interference, we aren't going to do any adjustments because everything's already in place. So we go over some do's and don'ts over the next couple days and a couple weeks to help hold that adjustment. So I usually tell people no heavy exercising for the first 48 hours. Stay away from overhead activity for a week or two because any pull downs, pull ups, or shoulder presses, they pull those traps, they connect right to the neck, and that could actually pull you out of alignment. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So for the next week or two, we want you to stay away from overhead lifting and try not to look down at your phone for hours at a time. We want to keep everything nice and neutral. And another question I get a lot is, how should I sleep at night? And I usually tell people, if you sleep on your back, you want to have one pillow. You don't want to have too many pillows pushing your head up because we're trying to bring everything back and restore that neck curve. And maybe put a little pillow under your legs to get a little knee bend so there's not a lot of pressure on your low back. Or if you sleep on your side, you want to keep the head nice and neutral. One pillow should usually do it. And you probably don't want, the worst thing I tell people is sleeping on your stomach with your head turned for 6 hours because that puts a lot of stress on the neck. I do have people that do it, but I advise against it.
No, that's great advice. I loved all that. And some of my viewers are probably asking, what does this have to do with dry eye? And it again goes back to your whole body health. So what Dr. Pecca is talking about here is he's making these adjustments to restore blood flow and to restore nerve flow back to your body. And so when your body is in a better state of homeostasis or better balance, that's going to decrease your stress levels. It's going to decrease the inflammation in your entire body. And it's just going to make your body feel better. So I always talk about dry eyes and blepharitis as being a symptom to an overall state of inflammation in your body. And that's the case for 95% of people. So that's why I wanted to bring Dr. Pecca on, because I thought this was so fascinating and I wanted to learn more about it myself, selfishly. But I think that everything you went over is great. And I hope that you, as the viewer, found a lot out of this, and just know that your whole body needs to be in a state of homeostasis in order for everything to be healthy. And so before we part, I want to say one thing. Make sure you go subscribe over to Dr. Pecca's channel. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video. And then I'll also put it down in the description down below too. but go subscribe to his YouTube channel. And I don't want people, I want people to know how they can get a hold of you or how they can see you for an appointment. So let people know where they can get a hold of you, Dr. Pecca.
Absolutely. So you can go to my website at drkevinpecca.com, drkevinpecca.com. We are on Facebook at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. I'm on Instagram at Kevin Pecca. I have a podcast called Expect Miracles on iTunes and all other podcast playing platforms. And I'm on YouTube, as you said, Dr. Kevin Pecca. I'm pretty much on every social media platform. And you can call the office, Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic, 973-744-3456. And you can email me at drkevinpecca@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, or concerns.
Well, Dr. Pecca, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was an honor to be on.